The blue light is a crutch. I know this. It is a harsh, flickering pacifier for a mind that refuses to settle, a digital hearth fire that keeps the shadows at bay. My therapist calls it avoidance. I call it necessary background radiation. I work in data recovery, staring at corrupted hard drives and fragmenting code all day. I am a creature of logic, of ones and zeros, of cause and effect. I do not believe in ghosts, nor do I believe in premonitions. I believe in bad wiring and exhausted synapses. But lately, the wiring has gone wrong. It began on October the 4th. The rain had been relentless, drumming a chaotic rhythm against the single pane of glass in my living room. I was watching a documentary on deep-sea bioluminescence, letting the narration wash over me, trying to drown out the city noise. Around midnight, the headache started, a sharp, piercing lance behind my left eye. I did something I never do. I picked up the remote and pressed the power button. Usually, I let the sleep timer handle it. I let the voices fade out after I have drifted off. But that night, I needed sudden, absolute darkness. The screen collapsed into a singularity of black. The silence that rushed into the room was heavy, pressurized. I closed my eyes, expecting the usual phosphenes, those swirling colors you see when you press your palms against your eyelids. Instead, I saw the static. It wasn't the darkness of sleep. It was a bright, roaring gray, a blizzard of aggressive pixels screaming behind my eyelids. It was the visual representation of a scream, white noise, snow, ant war. And then, through the grain, the image resolved. It was grainy, high contrast, like surveillance footage shot through a dirty lens. I saw a street corner. I recognized the flickering neon of a pawn shop sign, specifically the letter N, sputtering like a dying moth. I saw a man in a heavy trench coat. I saw him raise a hammer. I saw the glass of a jewelry store window shatter, not with sound, but with a sudden, violent jaggedness in the static. I saw him reach in. I saw the jagged glass slice his wrist. I saw the blood-black ink in the monochrome dream spilling over the velvet displays. I woke up gasping, my sheets damp with cold sweat. The room was silent. The TV was a black mirror reflecting my terrified face. Stress, I whispered to the empty room. Just stress. I went to work. I drank 3 coffees. I sat at my station and scrubbed through terabytes of corrupted banking data. Then, at lunch, I walked past the break room TV. The news banner was bright red. Breaking news. Robbery botched on 4th Avenue. I stopped. The anchor was speaking, but I didn't hear her. I was looking at the B-roll footage. It was a cell phone video taken by a bystander. There was the pawn shop. There was the sputtering end. There was the jewelry store next door. The window smashed. Police are looking for a suspect who fled the scene, leaving a trail of blood, the anchor said. I felt the blood drain from my face. Coincidence. It had to be. I drive past 4th Avenue every day. I've seen that pawn shop. I've seen that jewelry store. My subconscious simply rearranged familiar assets into a nightmare scenario. It was pareidolia. Finding patterns where none existed. It was the brain's way of decluttering. I rationalized it away. I am a skeptic. I require proof. October the 8th. I kept the TV on for 3 nights straight. I slept poorly, waking up every hour to ensure the infomercials were still playing. The cheerful voices selling air fryers were my anchors to reality. But on the 4th night, the power grid flickered. The storm outside had intensified. At 3 a.m, the apartment plunged into darkness. The TV died. The static was waiting. It didn't ease in this time. It slammed into my mind with the force of a physical blow. The gray snow swirled, coalescing into a shape. A park. Riverside Park. I knew the specific curve of the path, The way the willow tree hung over the bench like a weeping widow. The static sharpened. The resolution increased. I saw a woman jogging. She wore a reflective vest that flared white in the grain. She stopped to tie her shoe. Then, the glitch. A figure detached itself from the shadows of the trees. It wasn't human, not in the way the jogger was. The jogger was rendered in soft grays and whites. This figure was Vantablack, a void in the static, a silhouette of corrupted data. The figure moved with a stuttering frame rate, skipping forward. 1 second it was 10 feet away, the next it was directly behind her. I tried to scream in the dream, but my mouth was filled with white noise. I tasted ozone. I felt the vibration of the signal in my teeth. The figure struck. It didn't use a weapon. It placed large, dark hands on her shoulders. The static flared violently. A strobe light of horror. I saw the woman's face contort. I saw the life turn into signal loss. I woke up on the floor. I had fallen out of bed. The power was back on. The microwave clock was blinking 12. I scrambled for my phone. I searched for Riverside Park assault. Nothing. Riverside Park crime. Nothing. I sat in the dark, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. It hasn't happened yet. The realization was a cold stone in my stomach. I didn't go to work that day. I sat in front of the television, the news channel muttering in the background, my eyes glued to the bottom scroll. At 4 in the afternoon on October the 9th, it happened. Body found in Riverside Park. They showed the location. The willow tree. The yellow tape fluttering in the wind. I vomited into the kitchen sink. This was impossible. Causality does not work this way. Time is linear. I am an archivist. I deal in the past, in things that have already been written. I do not deal in the future. Unless I wasn't seeing the future. Unless I was seeing the intent. I started experimenting. I needed variables. I needed a control group. On October the 12th, I bought a new TV. Maybe it was the device. Maybe the capacitors were leaking some electromagnetic frequency that messed with my temporal lobe. I set up the new screen. I turned it on. I watched until my eyes burned. Then, with a trembling hand, I pressed the power button. Static. This time, it was a house fire. I saw the address number on the mailbox. 742. I saw the frayed wire behind the dryer. I saw the spark, bright and cheerful as a firefly. I saw the smoke curl up the wall like a lover's hand. I woke up. I grabbed my laptop. I searched the address. It existed. It was 3 towns over. I sat there, the phone in my hand. What was I supposed to do? Call the police? Tell them I had a dream about a frayed wire? They would lock me up. I would lose my clearance. I would lose my job. I did nothing. The next day, the news reported a tragic electrical fire in the suburbs. A family of 4 displaced. No fatalities, thank God. But the house was gone? The guilt was a physical weight. It felt like I had started the fire myself. By watching it in the static, had I observed it into existence? Quantum mechanics suggests the observer affects the observed. Was I the observer, or was I the projector? I needed to see the source. I spent the next week in a haze of caffeine and terror. I avoided sleep. I kept the TV on at max volume. I wore headphones playing heavy metal. I tried to occupy every frequency of my brain so the static couldn't get in, but the body shuts down eventually. On October the 22nd, I collapsed on the sofa. The remote slipped from my hand. It hit the floor. The batteries popped out. The TV went black. This time, the dream was different. There was no scenery, no street corner, no park, no burning house. There was only a room. My room in the static. I saw my own living room rendered in that terrible, grainy grayscale. I saw the sofa. I saw my own sleeping body slumped over the cushions. The perspective was fixed. It wasn't from my eyes. It was from the corner of the room. It was from the television's point of view. And then I saw him, the corrupted figure, the Vantablack silhouette. He wasn't in a park or an alleyway. He was standing in my hallway. He was watching me sleep. The static buzzed louder, rising to a deafening crescendo. The figure took a step into the living room. He was tall, distorted, his edges blurring into the background noise. He had no face, just a swirling vortex of interference where features should be. He raised a hand. He pointed at the sleeping version of me. Then, he pointed at the TV, at the screen through which I was viewing this nightmare. He moved his hand to his throat and made a slashing motion. I woke up screaming. I thrashed on the sofa, knocking the coffee table over. I scrambled for the lamp, knocking it to the floor. The bulb shattered, but the filament flickered on, casting wild, jagged shadows against the walls. I was alone. The hallway was empty. The door was locked. The deadbolt was engaged. I grabbed the remote and jammed the batteries back in. I mashed the power button. The screen flared to life, a late-night talk show, bright lights, canned laughter. I sobbed with relief. The light, the beautiful, artificial light. But the fear had changed. It wasn't just about seeing crimes anymore. It was about him, the Static Man. He wasn't just a glitch in the premonitions. He was the broadcaster, and he knew I was watching. I realized then that the crimes weren't random. The robbery, the assault, the fire, they were a trail of breadcrumbs. They were a frequency test. He was tuning the signal. He was dialing it in, getting closer and closer to the receiver. Me, I am a skeptic. But skepticism requires evidence, and the evidence was mounting that I was being hunted by something that traveled through the absence of signal. October the 31st. Halloween. The irony was not lost on me. The air outside was filled with the shrieks of children and the pop of fireworks. Inside, my apartment was a fortress of light. I had 3 monitors running, a tablet playing movies, and the main TV blasting a 24-hour news cycle. I had a plan. I would not turn them off. Not ever again. I would live in the light. I would buy a generator. I would wire my eyes open if I had to. But the universe has a cruel sense of humor. At 11 o'clock at night, a drunk driver smashed into the transformer box down the street. The sound was like a bomb going off. Then the hum of the city died. The streetlights went out. The apartment building groaned as the power died. My monitors went black. The tablet died. The TV died. The silence was absolute. It was thick, suffocating, drowning me. I fumbled for my phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I dropped it. It slid across the hardwood floor, vanishing into the dark. I squeezed my eyes shut. Don't look. Don't look. If you don't look, the static can't form. But the static doesn't need eyes. It exists in the mind. It flooded in, brighter and louder than ever before. It wasn't a dream. I was awake, standing in my dark living room, but the overlay was there. The white noise superimposed over the darkness. The image resolved instantly. I saw my apartment door. I saw the handle turn. In the static vision, the door opened. The silhouette stepped in. He was clearer now. I could see the texture of the corruption that made up his body like writhing maggots of black light. He held a knife made of missing pixels. I opened my eyes. In the real world, I looked at the door. The handle was turning. It wasn't a premonition of tomorrow. It wasn't a vision of next week. The gap had closed. The broadcast delay was gone. We were live. The door creaked open. The hallway light was out, but I could see him, not as a silhouette of static, but as a man. A real, solid man in dark clothing, wearing a mask made of duct tape and wire. He stepped into the room. He looked exactly like the figure in the dream. And then the horrifying realization hit me. the twist of the knife in my psyche. I wasn't dreaming of the future. I was never dreaming of the future. The static wasn't a window. It was a connection, a two-way radio. When I turned off the TV, I quieted the noise of the world, and in that quiet, he could hear me. He, some psychopath with a connection to me I didn't understand, maybe a neighbor, maybe a stalker, he waited for the signal to stop. He waited for the blue light to die. That was his cue. The visions, they weren't prophecies. They were his fantasies. I was telepathically sensitive, a receiver picking up the violent, loud thoughts of a monster living nearby. I was seeing what he wanted to do. I was seeing his rehearsal. And because I had watched them, because I had poured my focus into them, I had validated them. I had been the audience he didn't know he had. But tonight, the broadcast was over. He raised the knife. "I know you're watching," a voice whispered, not from the man in the room, but from the static screaming in my head. I backed away, hitting the cold glass of the window. The rain lashed against it. He lunged. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I did the only thing a creature of logic could do. I threw the heavy brass lamp through the television screen. The implosion of the vacuum tube or the shattering of the LCD, it didn't matter, created a sound loud enough to shock the air. And for a split second, the static in my head cleared. The connection broke. The man stumbled, clutching his head, as if a feedback loop had just shattered his eardrums. He dropped the knife. I ran. I ran past him, into the dark hallway, down the stairs, out into the rainy street where the transformer sparked and spat fire. I didn't stop running until I found a police cruiser. November the 12th, they caught him. He lived in the unit directly below mine. He had built a soundproofing chamber. He had maps, diagrams. He had a journal detailing the signal he felt from the woman upstairs. He wrote that when her lights went out, he could feel her fear, and it fed his urges. I am staying in a hotel now. I don't watch TV. I don't use computers. I read paper books by candlelight. But sometimes, when I blink, just for a fraction of a second, I see static, and in the center of the static, I see a jail cell. And I see him sitting on the cot, and he is smiling because he knows. He knows that I can't keep my eyes open forever. Eventually, I have to sleep. Eventually, I have to turn off. And when I do, this show begins again.